Hello and welcome to All For United. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that our introduction has been changed for the 24-25 season. So if you didn't watch that, feel free to rewind a few seconds and just have a little butchers at the iconic photographs that we chose to include this season. Which I'm really looking forward to tonight. It's going to be a superb show. I can feel it in my bones. We've called it the TikTok topic, which was something that I thought we'd do because it sounded good. I like a bit of alliteration being a teacher, but also because all of us in various forms and guises are on TikTok, but particularly the two guests that I've invited on this evening. So just below us, we've seen them both before. They're not new to the channel as such, but just below us is, of course, one of the TikTok gargantuans down there. Does stay controversial. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm really good. Just been relaxing, sort of. It's an awkward part for me because when international breaks come in, so you kind of don't want to get too excited about football because the minute you get that excitement, they cut it straight off. So I kind of don't get excited about football until after that first international break's gone. But I'm glad it's back. At least we've got something to talk about, and it's all positive.
Absolutely. There is a lot of positive stuff around United, which is really, really nice. And I'm sure we will get to that as well. But also on TikTok, we have Hadfield React, which is also known as Adam in real world, because you can't go and sign that at the bank. It won't swing. Adam, how you doing down there, sir?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me back on again. Just as last time, I've had problems with the mute button there straight off the bat. Yeah, really good. Just echoing what Daz has said, it's been nice to go into a season with a lot of positivity around the club. I think I said it last time I was on. I remember how deflated I felt after that first game last season when we played Wolves and we were just dreadful. I was on Old Trafford on Friday night and the atmosphere was buzzing, particularly in the Stretford end. It was amazing, really good. Everyone was really up for it, really behind the team, and we came away with a deserved win, so no better start than that.
No, absolutely that. And of course, he is on TikTok, but he's a bit like me in real life. We don't bother trying to grow the account, not too interested in that. But we are interested in seeing All For United's TikTok grow. So come and join us on there. Matt, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. It's nice to be back, and just reiterating what the two guys were saying, it's just nice to actually go into a season positively, and rather than just coming on the show and just talking negative like was the case for the majority of last season. So yeah, it's good to be positive, and looking forward to tonight's show. Should be good.
It should be good. And I'm so pleased that you've all started with the words "everything's so positive" at the moment, because in perhaps the most amazing situation that's ever happened in the history of the AFU brand, I'm going to come on and not be quite so positive to begin with. So this will be quite interesting. Benny has just popped on here. Lovely to see you again, Benny. Thank you for being in the comments. He is, of course, going to be on next week. We're looking forward to that. We have him next Wednesday, and that's going to be a youth-focused show. So that should be really, really good. But my topic was a very simple one. You'll have seen it from the thumbnail. And it was something that was omitted from the reaction show that we did after the Fulham game. And it came from watching what I can only describe as a bit of a meltdown and what I thought was a hell of a lot of double standards across some of the Manchester United fan base. And it just sort of got me thinking about players in general and whether or not some of them are just in a place where it doesn't matter what they do, they simply cannot please some of the fans. It doesn't matter what they do. They could go off and score 100 goals. They'd still get slated for something. And the thing that blew my mind on that one, the one that really got me to it, was watching that last minute. So Bassey completely air kicks it. It's a hilarious moment for everyone. And Marcus Rashford is through on goal. And he runs with the ball. And as he gets to the goalkeeper, he's got two options. Option number one, try and score past the goalkeeper. Option number two, knock it to Garnacho. Garnacho's got nobody on him. Open goal, should score. Now, in my world, 100% every day of the week, you want Marcus Rashford to pass that ball. because he could miss. The goalkeeper could make a save. Garnacho, if you were looking at XG, if that was something that you cared about, Garnacho's got the better XG on that one. So he passes the ball to Garnacho, and Garnacho, he fluffs it. It happens. And my negativity isn't around Garnacho missing the goal. But where my negativity on this does come from is that I genuinely believe if that was the other way around, and it was Garnacho who passed to Rashford and Rashford missed it, it'd have been crucified. Absolutely crucified. As it is, people have now gone into it and gone, actually, you should have passed the ball further in front of Garnacho for him to run on to make it even easier. Forget the fact that this is an international Copa America winning forward. No, we're just going to say the ball needed to be better. It's an open goal, lads. And so now Marcus Rashford's being told off for either not passing or, and this was the one that got me, not shooting. Mm-hmm. Now, we all saw the week before against City, he had shots that went wide. His finishing wasn't the most ideal. Could he have had a shot? Absolutely. But would the world have been angry with him if he'd have took that shot and missed? Again, Rashford would have been crucified. So I'll put it to you, because it could just be me. And exactly that box missed a similar chance in the Community Shield. Exactly my point. The goalkeeper's there, so he could put it wide. It's harder to score when the goalkeeper is in front of you than it is when he isn't. So I put it to you that it genuinely doesn't matter what Marcus Rashford does. He's never, ever, ever going to please everybody. And I just wonder how on earth that's happened. How on earth has it got to a point where someone who is our top scorer at the club, out of people that remain, he should be working towards iconic, legendary status because he's been here since he was young. Now, we're sitting here talking about, we've just posted about Sam Mather having signed his new youth contract. Is this what we're going to do to him? 10 years down the line, he's going to go from being an amazing, wonderful, brilliant player that we want to bring through the youth system into the first team. What about Kobe Mainoo? What about Garnacho? When's it going to be his turn? Does he have to miss a couple more of them and then all of a sudden he's going to be in trouble? And it's this perceived idea for me that Rashford doesn't do the things that everybody else does. He's accused of not running. When you actually look across the front line, there's a lot of people that are not doing the running because that appears to be the tactics that Ten Hag implements. So that's my argument. I think that Rashford's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Whereas Garnacho, he got away with that. Like everyone just went, oh, how's he missed it? Never mind, let's crack on. And I put it to you, if that was Rashford, we'd still be hearing about it now. So amongst yourselves, Daz, I'll let you go first. What do you reckon?
So I think you're right. Certain players can't do right from wrong. I mean, Marcus Rashford being one of them. You know, we've seen it in the past with Harry Maguire. I think Marcus Rashford's problem, I think, is one, he plays for Manchester United, so the media are automatically going to crucify you. 100%. I mean, like you said, if he'd have took that shot and missed, he'd have been crucified. I'm even convinced if he'd have scored it, people would have said the simple pass was just to square it. You know, I think he'll have always done. I think the issue that we've got is people think he's overrated, but I think if you look at Marcus Rashford's career, he's progressively gotten better year after year after year. And then he had the amazing year where he overachieved and scored 30 goals. He just was, 3 times better than he should have been. And then I think everybody expected Marcus Rashford's a 30-goal-a-year player. Now, actually isn't. It was just that he overachieved that particular year. And then because he didn't score, people then got on at him. And he ended, I think, a mixture between lack of confidence, the media expectations, the fan expectations. He ended up having a terrible year. And actually, this is a player that is very productive for Man United. I watched that game. Had Bruno Fernandes have scored his one-on-one and Mason Mount had scored his, we could be sitting here saying Marcus Rashford walks away with 2 assists. And obviously if Garnacho would have scored his again, that would have been 3 assists. That's a fantastic game. You know what I mean? But I think it's a mixture between being a Manchester United player. People love to hate, I think what he's done, because he's been here so long, people expect him to have these amazing production levels. And to perfect comparisons, Bukayo Saka. I don't think Bukayo Saka has showed me that he's a better player than Marcus Rashford. The difference is one plays for Man United, one plays for Arsenal. And when you play for Man United, unfortunately, the media like to jump on certain players and, you know, they want to put them down. And I think Marcus Rashford's just been on the sort of poor end of that from the media. And thing is, when the media are talking about it, the fans talk about it as well. And it obviously affects him as a player. But yeah, I mean, even when he scored 30 goals that year, people were saying, yeah, but he was only good for 4 months. Yeah, he probably was only good for 4 months, but I'm a firm believer that you judge a player based on what he produces in that season. He scored 30 goals across every single competition. That is a successful season for any winger. For any winger in the world, that is a successful season. And yeah, most of them goals came within that 4-month period, but people were still negative towards him because it was only that 4-month period.
I mean, yes, that is fairly true. I mean, we talk about that one, as you just said, scoring the goals he did for 30, but what we forget there is that the season before he'd scored 5, but he'd also scored the season before that 21 goals and the season before that 22. And in fact, he scored more than 10 goals for the majority of his time at Manchester United. So he has definitely scored a lot more than other people in his positions. And I just, and considering he's been moved about a bit as well and put in as a striker when that's not really always his best position. Agreed, Daz, but there's been definitely a microscope on Rashford at times. It's like the wait for an opportunity to dig him out. That includes the media, commentators and fans alike. And I think that's it. It's like he does get that microscope. What do you reckon, Adam? Are you seeing a microscope on Rashford that perhaps isn't there for others?
Yeah, I think he's last season, beginning of this season particularly, he's been cursed by his own success a little bit because he had that 30-goal season. So suddenly, as you said, everyone was like, oh, well, he can do it. But I think what a lot of people forget is he did that majority from the wing. And that is very hard to do in this day and age. He wasn't playing as a number 9, as a number 10. He wasn't playing as an out-and-out striker. He did that from the wing, and he had a blistering season. I think he's also cursed as well, particularly in this country, because he's English. The media like to really jump down the throat of English players. Now, on the flip side of it, I will play devil's advocate a little bit. I think last season he really didn't help himself at all with his image, with the Belfast incident, amongst other things, and obviously listening to the wrong people in his camp. So that really heightened the microscope on him. Now, if he'd had a second 30-goal season last season, that may have been brushed under the carpet a little bit, but because he had the season that he did, unfortunately, that just really sort of emphasized that pressure on him. And it obviously took his toll. He took himself off social media. He was obviously left out of the England squad, which must have been a massive blow to him. But he didn't really do enough to justify being in that squad. That's just my opinion. I don't think he would have gone and won us the Euros, let's put it that way. I don't think he would have added anything. And I think actually having a summer off has been really beneficial for him because he does look a lot sharper at the beginning of this season than he did for a lot of last season, I think. And as you said, he could have had 3 assists on Friday. You know, he could already have 3 goals, including in the Charity Shield, on his resume. And that chance in particular, that was all on Garnacho for me. He should have buried that. If you look at when Rashford made the pass, the keeper's positioning is excellent. He's come out, he's made himself massive, and he's made that goal tiny. So there's a very small chance. He's a bit like the Bruno one in the first half where the keeper raced out. Again, great positioning. Everyone says, oh, he should have buried that. Well, if you've got a 6'8" keeper bearing down on you and you've got that split second to get that shot off, you're going to miss it. And just going off a little bit, there's another one in our squad, I think, that is a classic example of this, and that is Maguire. He's very Marmite in our fan base. I personally think he's a decent player and he's a good to be able to have as a solid backup when he's fit. I know we brought in De Ligt and obviously Martinez is the solid starter, but Maguire's another one that is cursed by our fan base because he's English, because he's not the most mobile, centre-back in the world, but he does a job, and he did a freaking good job against Fulham, by the way. Last Friday, he was really good at clearing his lines for a lot of it. So I think we just, as a fan base, need to start supporting our players a bit more, because you're not going to help the confidence, you're not going to help the form if we're constantly jumping down the throats of our players. That's just my opinion on it.
No.
But I think this is it, isn't it? I mean, can you imagine the Cantona Kung Fu kick in this? Like, because if that happened, the amount, I think, of our fans that would genuinely be out for blood from Cantona, because I was going to be out for months. Outrageous thing. Doesn't matter what people say in there. And that's not United. We always back our own. When Cantona did that, I mean, I wouldn't say he was celebrated, but he was certainly revered despite that. And when he came back, it was the return of the king. It wasn't the return of the naughty boy. You look at Ronaldo and Rooney when we had the wink gate that happened there. And Fergie just went, look, we're not having this.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. Beckham got a red card for England, and United just went, well, you don't have to like him. We love him. And he speaks about that in his documentary that he did about just how much that meant to him, the fact that we were the ones that stuck with him all the way through that, because otherwise he probably wouldn't be able to bear it. And I don't know, it blows the back ran into Cantona's leg. Exactly that, right? So it should be us against the world. And I find it so hard to see the constant denigration of so many of our players, and it's happening to Jadon Sancho. Granted, Sancho hasn't really given as much as that we could have seen and sort of hooked our hats onto. But it's a little bit harder to keep them positive when you're talking about someone like that who's making it really difficult for you. But I don't know. I don't understand it changed that much. Matt, Beanie's loving your new top. It is amazing. Nice bit of advertising there. Don't know how much to pay. Good stuff. So what do you make of it all? Because it's Maguire, Shaw's another one. He's getting it in the neck because he's always out injured. Martial had it. He was always out injured. Like, I just don't believe that real Manchester United fans are that angry against our players. They can't be. They can't be, can they?
I think it's just become the sad reality of the club at the minute, to be honest with you. I think we discussed it a lot last season. Obviously, Rashford's season, for his own standards, was quite a poor season. So I think looking at it from the outside, I think he probably was expecting some of the criticism. And footballers do know they are going to get criticised. That's just the whole nature of what they do. But I think sometimes, more so in Rashford's case, it does go a little bit too far. I think, like the guys have said, Rashford seems to be one of the main scapegoats, I feel, at the moment, along with obviously Maguire was the season before when he was captain more so. I feel like when the spotlight's on them more, obviously Rashford's one that's come through the club, come through the academy. So I feel like the spotlight's on him a little bit more than maybe some of the others, which maybe sort of like digs him out a little bit more for fans to criticise him. But going back to the Fulham game, I think the chance he had to shoot, I literally said at the time when it happened, when I was there, I thought no matter what he does here now, whether he shoots, because I thought he was going to shoot, admittedly, at the time. But yeah, either way, what he was going to do, whether he was going to shoot, pass, you name it, lob the keeper, whatever he'll have done, whether it had gone in or not, there was always going to be some sort of criticism. And as soon as he passed, and obviously Garnacho missed, we all knew that Rashford was going to get the flack for it, because that's just what happens now. So yeah, it has become the sad reality of it all, but it is a shame because you can see the signs. You can see he wants to get back to his best, and I think, like Adam said, I think him having a full pre-season and not being in the England squad hopefully will help him as the season progresses, and hopefully we'll start getting the goals that we know he's capable, and obviously the assists as well, which will help us massively. So yeah, it is a shame to see. I just hope he can actually come out and prove people wrong this season and shut a few people up with a bit of luck.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The thing as well, though, is that players are not exempt from criticism. Absolutely, criticism should be allowed. We've all just sat here and said, Garnacho should have scored that. The thing is, Garnacho knows he should have scored that. And it's when it seems to go from criticism. I mean, Connor has been on already in the chat saying, yes, it could have been a better ball from Rashford. And yeah, it could have been. Like, nobody's sitting here and saying it was the perfect, brilliant ball and it was laid on a plate. But, you know, let's be clear, there was certainly enough of it on the plate for you to be able to get your dinner out of it. It wasn't all over the floor. So, yeah, I just think...
I think it's important to remember as well that this is not, in a lot of cases, this is not just a media or a rival fan thing towards our players. I think as a fan base, we are very much part of the problem in a lot of cases. Perfect example of one is Anthony. I remember Anthony's first game. I'm sure everyone remembers that he was on right-hand side. He took the ball, he did his little ball spin thing and got absolutely crucified for it after the game, to the point where Eric Ten Hag came out and he told him that that skill has no place on a football pitch, not realising that that's sort of his trademark thing, and actually that could have hampered his confidence, being told, actually, you can't express yourself. And is that the reason why Anthony's just never made, you know, the fact that people got on at him from his very first game and said, that's your trademark spin, we don't want to see it. For me, I wasn't bothered that he did it. He didn't lose the ball. He had all the time in the world to do it. He was showing off on his debut. But the way that the fans just got on at him, and I'm just like, that's obviously affected his start at United. And is that linked to poor form, you know, poor confidence? And ultimately, this is where the Anthony problem may have come from. Obviously, we'll never know, but we've created that problem as a fan base. I'm not saying any of us individually, but, you know,
I don't think you're wrong, because I saw that thing from Anthony and I liked it. Like when you think about Ronaldo when he came to the game, and I was too many tricks and flicks. You've got to learn the English game and whether or not you can cope with the physicality and cope with those sorts of things. The only way for that to happen is for you to build on it. And I agree with you. I think
I think they need the freedom to want to fail as well. Because need to fail. I mean, everyone will remember. I mean, I remember watching United and seeing a cocky little winger that tried to take everybody on, lost the ball more than he took people on. But the more he did it, the better he got at it, and that player became probably arguably the greatest player we've ever seen.
Yeah, I remember one of the first times seeing him on Old Trafford when I was a lot younger, and my dad was taking me on, and the chant was going around, there's only one Ronaldo, and I heard 2 or 3 around us going, yeah, and it's not you, kind of thing, not knowing what he was going to turn into and the player he was going to become.
And it was frustrating to watch, wasn't it? You used to watch him and go, pull your hair out, because he was giving the ball away.
But it's similar with Garnacho now, I think.
Players we had. But I think
Garnacho's at that stage where sometimes you can get a bit frustrated with him because he tries one too many touches, one too many flicks. But he needs to, as you said, he needs to do it to learn, to progress, to become, hopefully, that world-class player that's in there somewhere. You can see it.
Yeah.
I think it's an awkward one. I mean, Beanie comes straight in and goes, to be fair, Pony is, Anthony is Pony. And I think this is, again, you don't necessarily have to like a player. You don't even necessarily have to think a player is good enough for Manchester United, because there's plenty of them. Like Danny Welbeck, I wasn't distressed when he left the club. But I look at where the club is now and think, could we do with Danny Welbeck? And the answer is yes. He could definitely do a job for us right now. So it's one of those. But I don't know. It just, while they've got the shirt on, is it just that they need to have our support? I mean, NT says our fan base is definitely part of the problem. Seen many of us going over the top with Maguire and Rashford, as have opposition fans. So, listen, I think it's one that could range on for a long time. Beanie just finishing off with far too easy to defend against and far too predictable. Maybe that's what you're being told to do, like Daz says. And if that's the case, whose fault is that? Who's like Onana? We haven't seen him come off his line. The one thing we said, we were buying a goalkeeper who was going to be on the halfway line most of the time. And nowadays, if we see him go past the 6-yard box, he gets a nosebleed. So, there's got to be more at play than just a player just taking it upon themselves to go, oh, that's it, I haven't got to try, or I haven't got to do this anymore. There's got to be a reason why a thing that's in their game that's used regularly now isn't being used regularly. And it's not going to just be they've chosen not to do it. Like if you sit there, if you go into a relationship with someone and you've always picked your nose for your entire life, and then you sit there and you pick your nose one week and the missus goes, no, not on my watch. You're not going to do it anymore, are you? Doesn't matter how much doesn't matter how much of a home comfort that was for you. You ain't going to do it. And it's exactly the same thing here. You will change your behaviour depending on who's in charge. That's how life works. Rest assured, when she's left, you're probably still going to go back and do it. So maybe that's what Anthony's doing in his free time, just running around playing a bit of futsal. Who knows? But we need to move on, otherwise we'll be stuck on just the one topic. So, Matt, we're going to go over to yours. I know that you want to talk about recruitment, so we're going to include the news, of course, that Facundo Pellistri has left for £6 million today. Feels like quite a small fee, but equally there are add-ons and sell-on fees and things like that go through. And these are words that are music to my ear, because I can't remember the last time we sold a player and there was definitely selling on fees and things like that. So, Matt, open up with your topic, dear boy.
Yeah, so mine was sort of like, it was based around recruitment, not so much obviously including United, but looking at it, how it compares to other teams in the league. So in terms of obviously the aspects of recruitment, in terms of United, I was sort of looking at the more the approach to the recruitment now more than in comparison to previous seasons under the new structure. That was probably the positive part of the topic that I was wanting to discuss more than anything. The approach, and obviously the fact that we're not overpaying for players now. Because then when you look at compared to other clubs, like I think I mentioned Chelsea as a prime example, stockpiling players. Like, I just can't understand how they're actually managing to bring all these players in. There doesn't seem any sort of structure or any sort of thought process to a lot of it, what Chelsea are doing. Obviously, us as United fans, it doesn't really bother us as such what they're doing. But if you look at it from an outsider's point of view, when you look at clubs like Newcastle having to sell players within a certain time frame to, is it the profit and sustainability rules to try and match all them? And you look at all these point deductions that are going on for clubs like Forest, Everton, etc. You sit there and wonder how teams like Chelsea are getting away with it. Admittedly, there's still time for them to offload these players, but I think I read the other day when the team was announced, the number of players that weren't even in the match day squad that they had. And you look at some of the names, even players like Lukaku, players like that you could probably get decent fees for that are on big wages. I just don't see how they do it. I just wanted to compare, obviously, the United's approach now. I just wanted to praise it because obviously United are getting the players out, in fairness, this summer. And obviously the approach to bringing players in, they're not overpaying for players now, like this Agate deal. They're biding the time, they're making sure they get the right deal for them, and they're not going to be forced into paying ridiculous money. So I just wanted to see what the guys' thoughts were on, obviously, the comparison of the two, really.
Absolutely. Go on then, Adam. Why don't you make a start on that one? What's your thoughts on Matt's opinion there?
Yeah, no, I think I really do praise the new team for our recruitment this summer. I think it's, even though every pundit and media outlet in the world will tell you that we've had a bad transfer window and that we've got injury-prone players and players that weren't playing for their team and all this nonsense, that's a load of rubbish. I think the players they brought in, really, really shrewd pieces of business. The Yoro one in particular, I know he's injured. That's just one of those really horrible bad luck things that happen. But, you know, that, for me, is going to be one of those signings in 3 or 4 years' time we look back on and go, oh, my God, I can't believe we got that boy for the money that we did. Yeah. To your point with Chelsea, it's just chaos. It's just absolute chaos. Like, what is going on there? I actually read something today, whether there's any truth in it or not, I don't know. But a few insiders seem to believe that Chelsea are aware that they're potentially going to have quite a hefty transfer ban incoming. And the reason that they're now stockpiling players is getting them on 7-year contracts is because actually they might not be able to sign players for a few seasons. So if that is true, then it kind of makes sense. But back to United, yeah, I'm really happy with the way they've done it. You know, you look at some of the deals we've done a couple of years ago, they were the kind of deals that are rumbled on all through summer for us to get a week out from the transfer window closing, the deal to suddenly be off, and then we go and spend £90 million on a 32-year-old player and put him on a 5-year contract, because that's just how United worked. They had the De Jong and Casemiro one was the perfect example of it. Chase De Jong all summer, he was never leaving Barcelona. It was never on, and then suddenly we get hammered first 2 games of the season, and suddenly we've signed Casemiro for massive money. And thank God he looks sharper this season with a good rest in him, because it could still really bite us on the arse. But the money that he's on for his age and everything else, if he'd have continued his serious drop-off that he had last season, we could have been in a bit of trouble with him, unless like a Saudi team or something came in. So I've got nothing but praise for United's strategy this summer. It's been really, really good, really positive to see.
I have to say, I think the Chelsea thing you mentioned there, if they are stockpiling players, that would be absolutely mad, because they obviously haven't sold the manager. Because he's literally gone out there and told 20 of them, as far as I'm concerned, to train with the kids. You're going to be nothing to do with this club. So I think the only way they're stockpiling players is if Enzo is going to be hitting the unemployment line sometime soon, because he is certainly not doing his best to endear them to the club, is he? And Matt, I think you're right. I think the whole attitude around this club now is so much more positive amongst the vast majority. We started with some negativity, but it's just occasional things that I see. My timeline isn't awash with this stuff. You just get the occasional one that makes you go, you can't be serious. I turn into John McEnroe so often on X, it's unbelievable. But I just think that you're right to be positive. What's nice is that every time we're looking and being linked with a player, it's always if so-and-so gets sold.
Yeah.
So, we might be bringing in one player, but it might depend on McTominay leaving, or it might depend on Casemiro leaving, or those sorts of things. So we're working within our means, but equally, we're not just going, well, let's bring them in anyway, and then we've got 2 lots of wages to pay for. We are trying to balance the books and keep them in the black rather than in the red, which is so very, very important. So I think everything we're hearing from this football club in terms of the type of player we're recruiting, the positions even, I still feel like we could do with a left back, but it's not as important as a centre mid now. We was discussing that in our previous show. So it's good now, because the focus, I think, can move more onto the playing side of things and more onto what's happening on the pitch. Even though we saw one of the Glazers at the Community Shield, was it Community Shield or was he at the Fulham one? They've all both merged into one now. He was definitely in one of the games.
I think it was a Fulham one. I think he was there, one of them. Yeah.
The most recent one. And even though he's there, like the vitriol, the anger that was here this time last season just isn't there. And I think that's so important. The fact that we're not sitting here thinking about, we need to have marches around Old Trafford to try and moan about the ownership. You were talking about unity amongst the fans. It matters here as well. If we're not unified behind our team, we still don't have to like the fact that the Glazers are in charge, but they are so in the background now. For them, it's perfect, because they can carry on getting some money out of Manchester United, which ultimately is all they ever really cared about when they took over the club. So Jim Ratcliffe can get a football team that is hopefully successful, which he hasn't really managed to do with the other people that he's chosen to take over. But the club can hopefully now just get back to being on a more even keel with sensible people making sensible decisions. Meaning, like I say, we can concentrate on the football. What do you reckon, Daz?
I think I'm going to be quite controversial with this. I remember as a fan base, we sat here a year ago and we was like, we've just finished third. We won the League Cup. The Glazers are on the way out because there was a talk of a takeover. Nobody moaned that Anthony came. I think people moaned about the price, but nobody moaned he came in. He was an Eric Ten Hag guy, militia. Sort of, no one knew that he was going to vanish for a year. But he was someone to tell into Luke Shaw for his position that was injury prone. But he was Dutch. He sort of fit that philosophy. I think, again, I don't think bringing Casemiro in was a mistake, given our urgent need for a CDM. I think the price we paid for him was a mistake. Bringing in Eriksen on a free would be no different to bringing a player like Rabiot in this window for a free. I think sometimes you accept that you're going to get an experienced player in on a free. I think it's important that the vibes this time last year was actually there. There was positive vibes. They just disappeared. I think at this stage, we're all really hopeful, and 100% the club is in a better position because of the structure, because of the coaching staff. I think as well, because of the culture, I think it seems like a happy camp. Everybody seems happy. The fans are happy. You're never going to please the media, but the people direct around United are really happy and hopeful. And I think the big thing is you look at all of them transfers and you say they've been done at the right price. No one's going to come into this season and say they've been done right. We've walked away from players like Jared Brandwaite, who I would have happily have took at United, didn't value him at 60, 70 million quid, whatever there was quoting for him. But United walked away. They had a feel of the market and managed to bring in 2 players for the same position at the same price that one Jared Braithwaite would have cost you. That was a good deal. I think we're not always going to get deals like that. I've got a feeling that Ugarte's probably going to be a £50 million signing, but it's going to be a loan with an obligation to buy. But with that one, you can bite your teeth a little bit and say, but we got everyone else really cheap. We just had to pay a little bit more for this one. And it sort of balanced itself out. But I think the camp was happy last year. I think, especially with us all knowing that the Glazers was going to go, I'm trying not to get too excited because I've got a feeling that one of these signings, because even Liverpool, Man City, even Alex Ferguson didn't always get it right with signings. There's always a bad signing when you bring in so many players. We just don't know who that bad signing's going to be. Obviously, I think I'm happy that I actually said this, the most important thing for me is over the last 2 years, we've proven we can beat treble winners Man City, best Arsenal team we've seen in 10 years, probably the most stable Liverpool team we've seen in 30 years. We've proven we've beaten all of these teams. We could beat anybody on their day. What we can't do is do it consistently over 38 games. And I don't think Man United needed to improve the level of their team. I think the level of their team has been there good enough to beat any team. Because the problem is, when you look at a team like Man City and Arsenal, their weak links are like just below, there's sort of a small gap between their strong players and their weak players. Whereas Man United was the complete opposite. Their strong players was here and the weak players was sort of down here. So consistently, when you get these injuries, you rely solely on these weak players to get you through, a bit like we saw last year. I think because of how well we've done business, we've lift the floor up a little bit. So when we do have to, because we know we're going to get injuries, we know that, some of these players are not going to last 38 games, but we know that, for example, if we manage to keep Casemiro and bring in Ugarte, you've got a decent, competent player that can come in. You always miss your best players, always, but it's not a big hit, if that makes sense. Whereas last year, if Man United lost a big player, the way we wanted to play had to change dramatically. But so I am a little bit looking back at this thinking that I don't think the signings last year was that bad. I just think it was the money we paid for them. I think the year that Casemiro had, not last year, the year we brought him in, was good. This time last year, him and Rodri was head and shoulders against every CDM in the world. I was arguing that if it hadn't been for the treble, Casemiro probably had the better season. But when you win the treble, you can't not make Rodri the best, in class. I think he's been overused, and I think that is the lack of players that we've brought in. I think Casemiro, given his age, can't play 38 games. He can't play twice a week. And I think if he plays 25 games a year or once a week across all competitions, I think we'll start to see the Casemiro that we actually bought.
I mean, I think there's a lot there to agree with what you said. I mean, the vibes were there, but the 1958 were still organising the marches and all of those sorts of things. People were still meeting up around Old Trafford. There was still a lot of negativity because it wasn't until Boxing Day when it was actually announced that somebody said, and even then there was still, they've not taken over the whole club. And it took them a little while to see. And a lot of it is just, I think, almost like the veneer. We're not necessarily seeing it's like a screen. To me, that's what Ineos are basically turned into. They're like a human shield. They've just sort of stepped in front of the Glazers and they're going to take all the flack. But, controversial opinion of my own, the Glazers always provided the money. That was never the issue. I don't think the playing staff that we had, I don't think we necessarily blame the Glazers for that. I think we blame the Glazers for the people they put in charge to make those decisions for them. That's where the Glazers went wrong. They just didn't know anything about football. So they just basically got mates in and people that they wanted to have in. And I don't know. Matt, have you got anything else you want to add on your subject there before we move on?
No, I was just going to say, I think from what they both said, I do agree. I think you can sense it more this year, just in the atmosphere in the ground. Like I thought a lot of last season, the atmosphere was probably the worst I've ever known it. There's a lot of games where you were sat there and the stadium was completely silent for that parts of the game. There was just nothing. You felt like there was nothing to get behind, even though you really, really wanted to. There was just that sense of just something looming over the club. But being at the Fulham game the other day, the difference is like night and day. It's completely an uplift at the club. And like I said, there was too many distractions last season off the pitch as well. And I think fans were more sort of sidetracked with that more than what was on the pitch, which is unfortunate. But hopefully now we're moving in the right direction. Hopefully it stays that way.
Absolutely. You talk about being in the stadium. Adam, I think that leads us nicely on to what you wanted to talk about. So off you go, mate. Bring us your topic.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring some a little bit left field to obviously the team performance, and it is around attending Old Trafford. I've noticed over the last 3 to 4 seasons, it has become incredibly difficult to get matchday tickets unless you're a season ticket holder or you know a season ticket holder. For example, it's become really, really difficult. Like I'm blessed because I'm mates with 2 free season ticket holders who give me kind of first dibs on any games they can't make. So I'm really fortunate that I can take me and my lad. It's probably half the home games over the season. I'm on the season ticket waiting list, but last I checked, it's 38 years. So he might be able to take me when I'm retired, perhaps, when we finally get to the front of that queue. Or if we open this 100,000-seater stadium, we might get bumped up a little bit and it might drop to 25 years. But I'm not in line for one of those anytime soon. And if you follow any of the Facebook groups that do the ticketing for United or anything like that, the frustration seems to be growing amongst the fan base. Now, we are a global club. People come specifically to England to go to United games. So we're cursed a little bit with that. To your point, Matt, about the atmosphere, sometimes that affects the atmosphere, in my opinion, because you look around and more people are concerned about getting, videos on the phones as the match is going on rather than being engulfed in that atmosphere. And it can be electric and magical on its night at Old Trafford. We've all been on those nights. It can be amazing. Some of the groups, like you can see the frustration because they'll post, and when United do the big ticket drops that they brought in kind of this season towards the end of last season, there's 35,000 people in front of them in the queue. Well, they're only at a time probably selling about 10,000 tickets if you're lucky for these games, and that's people who have resold and everything else, season tickets holders who can't make it. So the chance of you actually getting to the front of that queue and then getting a ticket is really low. So you can see the frustration growing amongst the fan base that people can't get on to see their team and can't experience that Old Trafford magic. A few years ago, it was all ballots, and whether they still do ballots for the cup games, Europa League, everything else this season, I don't know. But again, the ballots are completely pot luck. I think over last season, I entered 10 ballots and got 1. Some people got none. It's really completely pot luck. Comment there, exactly right. So I wanted to just get everyone's views on the ticketing. How can United make it fairer? What's the way forward here? Because it's going to obviously continue to frustrate and drive people away from trying to get on Old Trafford, in my opinion.
Well, I think you're right. It's a really tricky subject. I mean, obviously, the world knows I'm a Southern Manc. I'm not one of those who lives just around the corner. I can't just pop out there and do a little show around Old Trafford as easily as one would like to. But I've supported this brilliant club since 1987. So I'm there. My first game was, I think, 1992 against Southampton. It was just one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And my mum got that ticket, and it was quite easy back then to get tickets because you said it's all about being members, it was all about ballotising and all of that sort of thing. And I've had European nights but it's always in the group stages because the season ticket holders didn't necessarily always go to the group stage ones. So it was always seen that was easier to get to. But more recently, I was gobsmacked that my nephew last season managed to get 2 tickets for us to go and watch Man United against Liverpool. Now, this was a fixture that in my head I'd always got myself to the point of I will never get to see this, because unless you're a season ticket holder, it's just not going to happen. It always sells out. It's not a game you can get to go and watch. And he got it purely because his dad works in a company, and that company gets tickets elsewhere. He also got a ticket to go and watch a wrestling event somewhere as well, through the sponsorship that goes through there. And as a result, thankfully, well done, Nick, his dad was on holiday. So he's like, well, if Dad's not going, then I'll take my uncle. Like, get in there. Absolutely awesome. And it was a great day. Absolutely loved it. Enjoyed every single second. But like you just said, that's a who you know or a once in a blue moon sort of opportunity. Trying to get online, I put myself into ballots before and click buttons to try and get there. It doesn't seem to happen because there are so many people that the whole demand is just too much for the public. So how do you make that fairer? I'm not entirely sure. Benny has already mentioned again, like you said, that the ballotising, whereas Beanie says think it should be season tickets then general sale. Should do away with memberships. It's a small chance for a large percent of people to get to see United, maybe. But it is a really tricky one. You also think about they've changed the Stretford end now, haven't they? They got rid of some of the hospitality there to move the seats in. And I think that's one of the things. It's the amount of seats that are just given away for the sponsorship. And I get that you need to kind of do that to try and get them in, but surely they could be in like the boxes somewhere. Surely that whole area you've got around there, that there must be a better way, but I'm not sure I know it. Now, Matt, you get to go to a few of these games, so you must have a bit of a say on this. In fact, you were at the last game against Fulham, so perhaps you can explain that. How the hell did you get a ticket to go and watch Man United against Fulham, and what do we need to do?
Well, it's a good question. Like I say, I think a lot of it is down to luck at the minute. There does need to be a fairer way. Obviously, when I got the tickets for the Fulham game, it was one of them ticket drops that they done.
Yeah,
I believe it was. And obviously, at the time, I think it's while I was in work on my dinner or something, I was just sat there in the queue letting it tick down as you do. On that occasion, I just got really, really lucky. The 2 tickets available, and I just got them, acted quick and got them. But yeah, there does need to be a fairer way. Obviously, I'm a member myself, and they do make the point that obviously members get priority. Obviously, if there's ticket drops, tickets available, people that resell or follow the tickets. But you feel like when you join a queue and you've got 121,000 people in front of you, you know there's next to no chance. By the time you get to the front, it could be 3 or 4 hours before you get to actually onto the page to try and get a ticket. By that point, they've all gone. So there does need to be a fairer way. I do agree with the idea that maybe the ballot system might be the route to go down again, possibly, because clearly what they're doing now is it's not working clearly. And like I say, not everyone's getting the chance to go and watch them. Unless you, like you say, you get really lucky, or you pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds for a ridiculous seat, just a little bit comfier than a normal seat, which I don't think many people are prepared to do. But yeah, it is frustrating. Like I say, the fact that you're paying money for a membership to try and improve your chances as well, to get nothing out of it is very frustrating.
We've also got a big touting problem at United. If you're on any of these Facebook ticket groups, how these people manage to accumulate 20, 30 tickets for it, and then they sell it on for 50, 60, up to, I've seen 300 markup price, depending on what the game is. They're not really United fans, in my opinion. They might go on, but they're not, in my opinion, that they're making us, who genuinely want to be there for the passion of watching our team, pay upwards of £300, 300% extra. What a ticket actually is hideous, in my opinion. The club have tried to clamp down on that this season. They put the tickets on the app now, and you can't screenshot them or anything like that, but they're finding ways around it. They always do.
Can I just say as well, can I say one more thing as well really quick? It is frustrating to see. I think Adam mentioned it, obviously, the other fans that were trying to get tickets that go there for like a photo opportunity. that are actually there for the experience of the game. I think at the Fulham game, I think there was someone that was sat near to where we were sat. And I think he came, or I don't know if he was a season ticket holder, I'm not too sure, I don't know who it was, but they came for the first half, and then half time they'd gone, didn't come back. And then you wonder why people get annoyed, and you got no chance of a ticket for people like that clearly have no interest in being there. So,
I mean, exactly that. And Benny has mentioned about the season ticket holders being towards the older generation. If Stu was on here now, Stu Woody, he would 100% be talking about how, as you said, that the season ticket holders are being effectively forced to pay their tickets, to give their tickets back if they can't attend. So rather than giving them to someone who they know, as you said, they have to give their tickets back generally to the club, and then the club will go on and sell that ticket. But they don't sell that ticket for 40, 50, 60 quid, whatever the face value would be. They'll go and sell that for 100, 200, 300, and they're not fussed who buys it. You can end up with opposition fans being sat in the wrong spot. And, all of those things have not been very helpful at all. And Beanie mentions about paying for the membership. I mean, the membership was never just that. You always you get things for that as well. It's not the only thing you get. I've had a couple of things over the years when I've done it. A rather lovely pair of socks the other year and a pretty good hat the year before that. So, that was probably worth the £10, whatever it was to be it. But what about you, Daz? Have you got any tickets lately, and how did you get yours?
I think we've got a system that is broken. I think it is broken for a number of reasons. I think I'm really happy that United sort of changed the way that the tickets on the app now, like you mentioned, and like someone's always going to beat it. There's always going to be a way, but at least they've acknowledged that that's a bit of an issue and they've been proactive in trying to change that. I think that there is solutions, but I think you're at risk of peeing people off. So one of the suggestions that a friend of mine come up with is that a season ticket holder could only hold a season ticket for 5 years, and then they have to relinquish that season ticket. So someone else has an opportunity to have a season ticket for 5 years. The issue you've got there is you're going to pee off all these season ticket holders that have been coming to United for 20 years, especially a lot of the old boys that, go week in, week out, and it's part of their religion. I think there's potentially a way of incentivising season ticket holders to sell their tickets back to the club for lower games. Like most season ticket holders want to make sure that you're there for your Man Cities, your Liverpools, your Chelseas, but probably not too bothered if they miss out on a Southampton game. If the missus has got an anniversary meal, they'll probably sell that ticket, but maybe some sort of incentive for season ticket holders to sell them tickets back to the club, not just give it to a friend, to say, oh, take my season ticket for the day. Maybe sell it back to the club and they can go back on general sale. I do think I've seen an idea quite recently, and it's not a perfect solution, but I'm desperate to try it. Did you see the video with the VR from
I saw that.
Los Angeles? Yeah. I know it's never going to be the same. But wouldn't it be great for those people that couldn't get a ticket to be able to buy, even if they said it's £6 a month, or it comes in with your MUTV subscription, that as part of that is you get the VR games. You know what I mean? You can sit and pick your seat, pay for your seat as a VR season ticket holder, if that makes sense. With this new stadium, they've got an opportunity to, implement that across the stadium. Different VR experiences from, and 50 people could have the same seat. Well, if that makes sense, and still sort of experience atmosphere. I know it's never going to be the same. Alternatively, we're potentially getting 25,000 new tickets with the new stadium. Let's find a new way of dishing them out. Let's not just say, okay, we're going to give 10,000 of them to season ticket holders, because the problem is you're going to get 5 years down the line and then we'll be having this same conversation. Can't get a ticket because they've given that extra 25,000 capacity that we're getting to season ticket holders, and we've got this same issue. Maybe use that say that this extra 25,000 will only go on general sale. It will only go to members of the Manchester United fan base through the membership, but you can't go to 2 games in a row, or something, to say to them that for this 20,000 or whatever, that we make sure that everybody gets a ticket at least once or twice a season, you know, if nothing else. But I really do like I really want to try the VR experience, because I've tried VR with gaming, but actually at a proper gaming place, and VR experiences, and some of them are absolutely incredible. So, given the technology that we're seeing now, the technology that I'm sure Ineos has got access to with Snapdragon and all of these companies that are associated with Man United, I think they could create, not the same, but, you know, a really good VR experience. Again, it's not going to be the same, but it's better than watching it on the telly, I'd have thought.
It's easy when you say that. I mean, like I say, again, a lot of it will come down to proximity. You know, if you were to take into account anything, the ticket itself might cost you 50, 60 quid, depending on whereabouts you're sitting. And, you know, for myself, there's the petrol that we're going for that. For some people, like there's people that come over from Ireland, so that could be a ferry ticket or a plane ticket to get themselves over. You know, for me, that's going to be a full tank of petrol, pretty much. So that's 60 quid immediately just off from that. So you could be looking at about £150. And I'm afraid that's just not something that I would be able to do 19 times a season. But once or twice a season, absolutely, that's the sort of thing that you would look to be doing. And I think if there is a way, that would be perfect. But you do mention that 25,000. The thing is, that's not going to be available for at least another 4 or 5 years. So still short term, it's not going to happen. And I just think you say it's got to be better than watching on the telly. VR thing is a nice thing. Sounds good. It's just one letter away from being something that people can moan about every week. So I'm sure that'll be joyful. But I do think that for me, the answer has always been we've got to get rid of the monopoly that the businesses have, not just the sponsorship side of things, but the fact that I have to wait for match of the day, or you have to try. Like, I find it will always and forever blow my mind that I can go to Spain and watch every single Manchester United game and it not be a problem whatsoever. But because I live in this country, I have to pay for Sky Sports. I've got Now TV, but if I want to watch Europe, I've got to have TNT or BT Sports, whatever one it is there. You need to have an Amazon Prime one if you want to watch one or two. And it just tots up so much that you're like, it's as much as trying to actually have a ticket to go and watch the game. And I do think they just need to stop it. Football's got enough money now. It doesn't need to constantly be trying to beat it every single year. You don't need Snapdragon to be going, what was that? They gave you 4 billion last year. Well, we'll give you 4 billion and 1 million. How does that sound? Just, do you know what? 4 billion was fine, mate. In fact, give us 3.5. We don't really need all that. It's all just, but because they're constantly trying to beat everybody, eventually they'll hit a point where there's no more money left to spend. What do they do then? So, yeah, I think that would be one of the things. Just get the ability. If I could get a season ticket to watch United on the telly, I'd be delighted. And if some of that money went to United as well, I'd be just as pleased. You know, and that's the thing. I think that we say that Man United are part of the Premier League and the Premier League has the rights to the Premier League. If they've got that, then why can they not just say, let's go to a subscriber-only model? Like, everybody signs up to Disney Plus. I would 100% sign up for an MUTV, £25 a month or whatever it is, if it meant I could watch every single Manchester United game. 100%. 100%. And that's what? So that's in a year, that's 300 quid. Now, already, you're talking about 100,000 people, your money's coming in. Now, I get it. It's not going to be great if you're a Fulham fan or a Brighton fan. You're not going to have the same fan base, so the money coming in might not be as good as it would be for Sky. I don't know. But they've got to do something, because the ordinary football fan is just sitting here crying out for proper football. And it's, I don't know, it's just like a military operation, just trying to work out. We've got Brighton at the weekend, and I'm thinking, well, I ain't got TNT. I ain't spending 30 quid just so I can watch maybe 1 or 2 Man United matches. So instead, you're left in a situation with, well, I've got to go and find a pub to go to. And I don't really want to do that either, because pubs are just a bleeding nightmare for the people that want to throw drinks all over you. So, I don't know. Very interesting one. But Adam, did you have anything else you wanted to add on that one?
No, I think that was really, really great. Really good discussion there. Cheers, lads.
Beautiful. Then in that case, we kind of step away slightly from Manchester United as the main topic, but they will be part of this in terms of the fact that the whole league could potentially be affected by this. So, Daz, we've saved the best till last, maybe. Let's find out.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the future of the Premier League because, as you know, Man City go to court in the next month or so. And I'm not going to sit here and say they're guilty or they're not guilty, but either way, there's going to be a fallout. So, for example, if Manchester City are guilty of breaching even 70% of the charges, what punishment is enough? Would people be satisfied with a fine or a transfer ban, or is it you've cheated, you've made a mockery out of the rules, you're going back to League Two or non-league? But then would Man City accept that? Are Man City going to come out of this as innocent, and then a lot of rival fans will say, actually, this don't smell too right, you bought your way out of trouble? Or the other option, Man City could actually be innocent and they could provide a really good, compelling case, but then as a Premier League club, they've got a duty to protect us all and sue the Premier League, which obviously is not going to end well. I believe that this is the beginning of the end of the Premier League as we know it, and I believe that this could trigger some sort of Super League. That Super League's not disappeared. I mean, Real Madrid president said that. It's gone away for now, but it's not disappeared. We're still talking. I think what they need to do as a group, you know, Man United, Glazers, all these people, is discredit the Premier League and sort of say that it's not integrity anymore, but we can provide a league that has integrity. And I think fans would get behind that. And we know the Glazers. I mean, Glazers are still part of Man United. We know all these football owners. End of the day, it's about money. And the Super League, I think, potentially would bring more money than the Premier League does. And I think this is why I genuinely believe something could happen. Whether that's a World Super League, and this is where we tie Saudi and America into this, you know, whether it just becomes one big European league, and it's, yeah. So I think it was just what happens to the Premier League and where does it go from here, depending on obviously the outcome.
Well, Matt, you're sat there in your Man United top. Would you still be in that Man United top if there was a European Super League? Talk to us. What do you reckon to what Daz has said here?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I say, I'll never stop supporting United. It's one of them, no matter whether it's a Super League, Premier League, whatever league you want to call it. I think when there was talks, was it a few years ago when the Super League, we all thought it was actually going to be a thing and come to fruition. I wasn't really overly convinced by it, and I wasn't really looking forward to the idea of that, to be honest with you. I think everyone's used to these big 20-team leagues now. Obviously, I think you could argue, obviously, certain teams haven't really got much of a chance in the league. So I suppose you've got to look at the balance of the teams that are in the league. But again, that makes it more interesting, keeps it more competitive, rather than watching Man United, Barcelona, Man United, Bayern Munich every week. It would ultimately get very, very boring, I think, watching us play the same team season after season. I like the idea now you've got so many teams coming up, so many teams. So the system does work. But I do agree with Daz. I think a lot of it now, it's going to be interesting to see how the Premier League handle the situation with City, because there is a lot of emphasis now on what the punishment's going to be. I'd imagine there will be some sort of punishment, I'd have thought, with the amount of charges they've got. So surely some of them will stick, because 115 is a lot to just completely dismiss. But I do agree that money does play a part. But I do think there'll be a punishment. What that'll be and how suitable each one will be is up for debate. But I personally do like the idea of the Premier League and the way it works, and obviously the EFL, the Championship. I do like the structure of it all, and I would be a bit gutted to see a Super League come into fruition.
Don't you think that a Super League would work? I know we didn't like the way it came out, you know, with teams never getting relegated, and don't you think a European Super League would work if it had the ability to relegate teams, you know, maybe have a Super League A, B and a C, for example, and say that Man United, if they don't qualify, they will be rejected to a B League or a C League, you know, and vice versa. Don't you think it would work then if it made it inclusive for any team to be able to play in the top league of it?
I genuinely believe that there will never be a European Super League. Certainly not in my lifetime, and I would go so far as to say probably not in Matt's. Certainly not one that's of any consequence, I don't think. You saw the absolute vitriol. Like Chelsea nearly took Peter Cech's head off You know, they love that bloke, but the guy was in serious danger walking into his car because they weren't having none of it. Man United fans went absolutely mad. They weren't having none of it. It was the one time when all of the fans went no. And there's a reason why we call football the beautiful game. We call it the beautiful game because it's ours. And as much as we get priced out of it and we're never the first thought, I think we just love it too much. I cannot see a world where Man United, Liverpool, even City would do that. And I think Benny, for me, has got it spot on in terms of the government will also have a say. They're not going to let that happen. They're not let, like Manchester. I mean, what's his name? Old Andy Burnham was on an interview talking about the Man United stadium, saying it's not for us to pay for it as the public, but it's for us to make sure that the barriers aren't there so that they are able to do it, because they recognise the fact that 75,000 people every couple of weeks come to Manchester. They're going to spend money in Manchester. They're going to do all those sorts of things. If you do the European Super League, that's not going to happen. And you talk about accessibility for fans. Well, how does that work when you've got to try and get away tickets in Germany, in France, in Spain, in Holland, in Norway? It's not going to happen, is it? Like you're going to price the fans. And
could you see that?
Hang on, just one sec. You think of like FC United of Manchester and how that came about when the Glazers took over. I just see the same thing happening. Like we'd just say, ta-da then. And I genuinely think it would be, you talk about the implosion of the English game, that would be it. There'd be a brand new breakaway, a start off. It would be, to me, like the PDC and the BDO in darts. Like there'd be a new league that the 92 would join. I cannot see a world in which the European Super League really works. But go on, carry on, sorry.
No, I was going to say, couldn't you see the same people behind the Super League then, acknowledging that it wouldn't work for some of the reasons you've said? Actually, we'll just run the new Premier League then. We'll create a new Premier League that gives these owners the money that they wanted. Because I think you said these clubs wouldn't do it, but to be fair, they did it. They all signed an agreement to create a Super League that they were saying this is happening in 2-3 years' time, whether you like it or not. And as a fan base, because of the integrity that behind it, we said, no, this isn't happening. And as a fan base, we all got behind it from every club and we put a stop to it. But surely they've listened to the fans and the money they're not going to walk away from, and they might. Then this Man City thing, sort of triggers it, because I think Real Madrid don't care about the fans. I think their president would jump into that even now, even as the terms was before. I think Barcelona would, especially given the debt they're in. And I think as much as Jim Radcliffe wants a different Man United, unfortunately, he is a minority stakeholder. I do believe when it comes to the commercial aspect of the club, I do genuinely believe he would be outvoted by Avram and Joel if they said we're joining a Super League. I genuinely believe they would use that majority stake to say, no, we signed the football aspect over to you, but this is commercial. This is our domain, not yours. And I think the Glazers would do that to United fans.
I mean, you might be right, but the fans would outvote them. Adam, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm totally, utterly 120% against any kind of Super League of any shape or form. Call me old-fashioned, but I like the magic of seeing United at Kenilworth Road or in Stoke on a wet, windy Tuesday night in November, or like a couple of years ago at Bloomfield Road in Blackpool. I love seeing United at all these other grounds, and I love that it is an English game. To Matt's point, I don't want to see United play Barcelona every week, Bayern Munich every week, because it loses then how special it is when you meet those teams in the Champions League, in the Europa League, whatever European competition you're in. It completely loses that. It would go downhill very, very fast if it came to fruition. I think people will get very bored of it very, very quickly, because to Matt's point, the beauty is every year with the Premier League, 3 new teams come up, 3 teams go down. So you get a new mix, you get new stadiums, new fan base, new stories to tell. And the Premier League's at a point now where anyone can beat anyone. We've seen that over the last few years. I know City are dominant and they're running away with it, but we know there's reasons why that's probably happened. But below them, anyone can beat anyone, and it can be any combination of finishing places. Villa finishing 4th last season was amazing. Newcastle the season before that. getting in there. That's the beauty of the English football and the English Premier League, which is why I think that a Super League will never, ever take off, in my opinion.
So, if not a Super League, then Adam, how do you think the fallout of this Man City? Because there is going to be a fallout, regardless.
There is going to be a fallout, but I think it will.
Whether that's Man City go to you know what I mean? It's quite an awkward one because I think if they're guilty, then what's the correct punishment? And if they're innocent, do they then have to sue the Premier League for
I think.
And
City
how does that affect the league as we see it?
Yeah, if they're found guilty, and they should be, I think any blind man and his dog can see they are guilty of some of those 115 charges. If they throw their toys out of the pram and say, okay, we're leaving, the rest of the league should say, ta-ra, see you later. That's exactly what should happen. The Premier League and the rest of the members in the Premier League should say, don't let a door hit you on the way out, because we all can see what they've done. The appropriate punishment should be what happened to Rangers, what happened to Juventus when they were found to be breaching serious financial and other rules. They got chucked out of their respective leagues and chucked to the bottom of the domestic leagues, and they had to work their ways back up. Why is City any different from them? Just because they won the treble, just because they're run by a country, Sorry, go on, Barry.
It's all right, you were just breaking up on my screen, that's all. But yeah, I would be delighted to see that happen to City. And I think if that does happen to City, the question you've then got to ask yourself won't be what will the rest of the world footballing world do about City? It'll be what will the owners do about City? Is City going to be that that product that they thought they had when they're playing in front of League Two crowds? It's not going to be. I mean, let's be honest. Man City might have fans that would fit in League Two in terms of the number of people that turn up, but that's a different question.
Do you see if they did get found guilty and they did get sent back to the start of the English football pyramid, even if that was League Two, for example, could you see their owners jumping ship, given the fact that they've ultimately used Man City to sport wash, and you can't sport wash with a corrupt club that's just had that? Can you see them sort of leaving Man City where they found him in the gutter?
Possibly. Just leave them there, go and find themselves another club. Who else can we get? They're not going to be fussed about that sort of thing, are they? And I think that's the big thing. So,
I mean, let's be honest, it's not going to happen.
NC Stevenage in League One, leave that be. Carlisle there. Don't you be having a go at Stevenage. Sorry, Adam.
It's not going to happen, let's be honest. We'd all love as United fans to see that happen, but it's not. The likelihood is they're going to get a big points reduction and they're going to get some sort of transfer ban. But a points deduction to City is not going to relegate them. Even a 20-point deduction is not going to relegate City. They would finish comfortably still in the Premier League. But
so how does back to the original question with the fallout with the other Premier League clubs? Then, do you think the other Premier League clubs, like your Man Uniteds and your Arsenals and your Aston Villas, would allow them to say? Because I remember a comment from a Premier League spokesperson that spoke on behalf of a select number of Premier League clubs, and I can only assume it was your Arsenals and your Man Uniteds, that came out and said if they're found guilty, they don't want them in the league anymore. You know what I mean? And that it ultimately,
they don't
the
have
Premier
power,
League
though.
is run by the clubs that are in it.
Yeah, but they don't have the power to kick a club out. That's ultimately a Premier League decision, isn't it? So,
What do you reckon, Matt?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I say, I think a lot of them, I can't remember exactly what it was a little while ago, there was some sort of vote on something and there was so many Premier League clubs for and against it. I think it may even come down to something like that, possibly, when it comes down to them kicking out of the league, whether they'll do some sort of vote. And obviously, if the majority of the clubs agree and want that to happen, then it'll happen. I don't know. There's got to be some way of deciding it, but also, like Adam said, the Premier League will have the power. At the end of the day, one or two clubs won't have the power. They can have a say, but that say ultimately won't matter unless the Premier League give the go-ahead for it, really.
Yeah, I know as Man United fans, we would never acknowledge their treble, their 4 in a row, their Centurions, but all seriousness, as a football fans, if they are found guilty, do you think the football community would basically say, no, you wasn't Centurions, no, you wasn't treble winners, and no, you didn't win it 4 in a row because
It's
you are
tarnished.
cheaters. And basically that 10 years of dominance that they've had just disappears, and Man United are the greatest team since sliced bread again.
I mean, they get the asterisk, don't they? Of course they do. Like Adam's already spoke about Juventus and Rangers, they've got that. But it doesn't change the fact. That's a money thing. That's an admin thing. That's off the pitch. And I think you'd have to be pretty sad, really, to just denigrate absolutely everything that Man City have done. Have they had it a bit easier than some other teams? Absolutely. Have they had to work as hard to do it? No, they haven't. But you can't argue that the players that they did manage to put together and the team they managed to put together was good enough to dominate English football for 5 years. So
I was actually going to say that you can't punish some. I was going to say that you can't punish a player like Phil Foden because his owners have cheated. But my question would be, I mean, this what we've seen 4 or 5 Premier League titles now between Liverpool and Man City and Arsenal and Man City come down to the final day, separated by points. My question would be, has that cheating gained them that extra point that actually gave them that title? Even if 1 point takes 4 titles away from them.
I suppose you could argue it's down to the quality of the players you've got, though.
You know what I mean?
Like Barry said,
I think it's going to be quite... And you know what I can see happening? Them coming out with this smelling of roses regardless of the outcome.
I don't think they will come out of it smelling the roses. I mean, we spoke to Crunk, I think his name was, from Shades of Blue podcast when we did the preview for the Community Shield. And you know, he was quite generous. He accepted that some of them probably aren't going to happen. Some of them probably will. But, I mean, you look at how City are this season anyway. They would need to have like virtually an 80 to 100 points deducted off them in order for them to just get relegated. Because this is a side that's capable of getting 80 to 100 points quite easily in a season. So, you know, they'd still have all their other bits and bobs. So there's going to have to be something. There's no way you can charge a team. I mean, like, you look at Everton, you look at, you know, these clubs down there that have had points taken off of them for one tiny little bit of PSR breaching. There's no way City are going to get away with 115, which if they do, then we have to question, not in the way that City have, because obviously they've tried to sue the Premier League, but they do need to question the Premier League and their ability to correctly run a competition. If you can put 115 charges against a side and none of them turn out to have any basis of you being able to charge them, that would be farcical from your governing
Premier
body.
League needs to come out of this with some of those charges being found guilty, or else they will just look weak. They will just look weak and pathetic. And those smaller clubs that you talk about, your Evertons, potentially your Leicesters, your Notts Forest, they rightly will go mad because, as you say, they've been found guilty of one.
I think this is what makes me think that an exodus will start happening, because you've got the top teams like Liverpool that will say, you cheated, you took 2 titles away from Klopp, rightly so. You've then got Arsenal that could say the benefit and the monetary value that you had took 2 titles from us, potentially a 3rd one this year. And then you've got these teams at the bottom that have been penalised, and they're going to have an uproar, because I've got a feeling that over the next year, we're potentially, I mean, there's talks that Nottingham Forest are going to get done. We know at some point Chelsea are going to come in the limelight with this. You know, I think, I would be more surprised if Chelsea didn't, but I think they will, and I think they are prepared for that. Is it going to sort of open a closet that are going to see other teams start getting done? You know, I mean, you know, is more. To put it into I had a conversation with Big Steve, one of the Man City guys, and he said that you would be surprised on the amount of teams that financially benefit from Man City's potentially cheating, which makes me think, is that enough to keep all of this hush-hush?
No, it could. I can't say I've delved into it as much as to find that, but I suppose my biggest argument to that would be there's still people out there that think the world is flat and that we didn't land on the moon. So, you know, you can dive into just about anything and find some level of ridiculousness. Listen, you talked about voting them out. It'd be very easy. Just 19 teams going, do you know what, we've had enough. City have been in here, they've had all that, they spent all this money. They're not really doing anything that's benefiting the league in that respect. So, like you said, how easy would that be? 19 teams, vote out one, see you later, you're gone. And it would be very, very simple in that respect if that was how they were going to do it. So, no, mate, definitely not. No matter what they might say, no matter how much they try and show you a plane flying around the world and go, oh, but what would happen to the plane when the plane is like that and it's the size of an orange? Jesus, these people. But genuinely, I can't see it. Like Benny mentioned a little bit earlier on that they've already got the European Super League. They've got that. They've changed the Champions League now. The Champions League, which was in a format that was absolutely fine and didn't need touching, they've changed it now, so it's this 32-team closed league, effectively, all based on how well you do in Europe. So they're going to get their money through that, and nobody ever touches that. They just get more and more and more allowed in the middle of the week. So there we go. And yes, absolutely. Wait till Beanie finds out about the Easter Bunny. Santa is real. Yes, absolutely. Santa is definitely real. And I will fight anybody who tells me that he's not. I know that Santa is real because when I went to bed last Christmas, I said, please, Santa, for Christmas this year, can I have a Manchester United win in the way that it used to be? And then, of course, 2-0 down against Villa. Like, please, Santa, don't let me down. And he didn't let me down. And Boxing Day was a wonderful day. My club got sold, and we were winners over Aston Villa. I mean, it didn't end brilliantly in the grand scheme of things, but it wasn't a bad day. Daz, we got anything else you want to throw out on that one, or
you what? Sorry.
What, anything else you want to throw out on that one from anything that's come back? Anything you want to?
No. That's sort of everything.
That's fine. Good stuff. Well, that's about it. Simon, you came in a little bit late, bless you, and you put up a little thing there that said, good evening, guys, just got in, what have I missed? And the answer is quite a lot, if I'm brutally honest, because we've been going on for an hour and 22 minutes, so it'd be a bit of a worry if we said not a lot. You've missed a hell of a lot. We've spoken about agendas in football, whether or not Marcus Rashford should have been as denigrated as he was for his pass to Garnacho, whether or not Garnacho actually shoulders the blame, and what the fan base think about that. Speaking of the fan base, we tried to work out whether or not they would be able to get into Old Trafford, and very much in the how many elephants can you get in a mini type argument. How many United fans can get into Old Trafford in the course of a season seems to be just as hard. We've also spoken about recruitment. We said our goodbyes to Facundo Pellistri, who is, of course, on his way out to Greece, which is a lovely place this time of year. And of course, we've just had the chat about Manchester City and the 115 charges. So tonight has been your TikTok topic. And I'll tell you what, gang, I think it's been brilliant. We had a great show this evening. Lots of good conversation. Loads of you in the chat getting involved as well. Been superb to see. So as it's the TikTok topic show, I think the last thing we've got to do, especially for you two, is to get you to shout out where people could find you if they wanted to hear more of your ridiculousness on TikTok. Whereabouts would they go for that? Daz.
So follow the trouble on TikTok and you'll find me. That's stay controversial. Honestly, if you find the argument, I'm sure I'll be linked to it somewhere. But yeah, TikTok.
A lot of his content is just seeing somebody there, and then in he comes, just like, I've just got to say about this. It's very good indeed. Adam, what about you? Where can people find you?
Mostly on TikTok. Hadfield Reacts is the handle. I try and post videos a couple of times a day, just basically talking everything United, giving my views on it, and obviously getting involved with all the creators as well. So yeah, give us a follow. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely that. And of course, I mean, you can try and find Matt if you want, but
Good
find
luck.
me as well. But genuinely, it would just be a massive waste of time because you'll literally never see us post anything. It's not worth it. But where you can go is to @allforunited. We're at 42 away now from that magic 800 mark. So if you could get yourselves on there and follow All for United on TikTok, that would be bloody wonderful. Thank you very much. tomorrow, massive thing tomorrow. We will have at 5 o'clock, as we did last week, our short form content coming through, the preview for the lunchtime kickoff against Brighton on Saturday. That's at 5 o'clock tomorrow. So if you're driving home, obviously don't be watching it. That's stupid, but listen to it through your Wi-Fi, your Bluetooth on your speakers. Have a little listen to that on the way home. Perhaps you're in the bus. Make sure you wear headphones. Maybe don't wear headphones. And then people go, oh, what's that wonderful stuff you're listening to? You go, oh, it's all for United. Go and follow them on YouTube. Do that. I don't care. It's not my bus. Go for it. Give it a try. Do it on the train as well if you really want to. But we've got all of that, and then we will be back Saturday evening to react to everything that would have happened as we boxed Brighton 4-0. I say that. It's not a very close one. We've got Sean Misra, who you would have seen on WFC if you've been on there before. He is our Brighton fan. And we have got Dan, is the other guy with us. So that is about that. Thank you very much, guys. Again, much appreciating your time. Thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you all tomorrow.